things that the Dream Team's model, I guess, has is this idea of productive conflict versus destructive conflict. So when you have different ways of looking at things, or you have different ideas or opinions, there's going to be tension between those. And there's a point when that tension becomes so great that the relationship snaps. And that's usually when things get personal, or when the goals start to diverge. But tension, healthy tension, becomes really powerful. So there's in that, I'll just share the stuff with you guys so that you can explore this specifically. But there's this idea of cognitive friction, that like conflict that is not destructive is cognitively productive. And so there's things that you can do to seek this out, and there's things you can do to prevent this from becoming destructive. But the main two are when you invite conflict, it becomes a lot easier to handle. If you ask someone to tell you their dissenting opinion, or you ask someone to poke holes in your idea, it's a lot less psychologically painful. You're going to be a lot less defensive, and they're going to be a lot likely, unless they're like a total jerk, a person who's invited to dissent is going to treat you better in that process. It becomes a collaborative thing. Like you're both playing the game now of let's find the holes, or let's find the problems. This is basically the step in, if you remember the scientific method from primary school, the science fair. The scientific method is you make an observation, you ask a question, you have a hypothesis, and then you test the hypothesis. So this is how scientists work. The test of the hypothesis is not to prove that your hypothesis is right. In science, you're trying to disprove the hypothesis. And when you do everything you can to disprove it, and it can't be disproven, then you have a good scientific theory. So that's kind of the idea with conflict. You want to invite conflict so that you can make sure that your ideas can't be disproven. You're not trying to prove your ideas. You're trying to figure out whether you're barking up the wrong tree.
Yeah.
And when you approach conflict that way, it's just so much easier to deal with. The other thing that I'll say is a key skill is to learn to identify when things have gotten personal for you or for another person. So if you are in conflict with someone, it's really only going to become a problem when they start to take it personal, or you start to take it personal. And so, identifying the signs that someone might be taking this personal and not judging them for it, being charitable about it, but recognizing that means it's time to step back, and time to take a break or a breath, or to reframe things, or to resolve some concern so that it's not personal. That becomes the key skill. And because you can't control other people, recognizing that's good, so that you can take some action, but in yourself, really understanding when things get personal for you and being honest with yourself about that, which is not easy. But reminding yourself that you are not your ideas, and looking for ways to, when you feel like angry or upset, or, strongly in some way about a conflict you're having, identifying where it's personal for you. It's personal because maybe your job's on the line, and that's personal and it's really important to you, or it's personal because this is an idea that you hold really closely, or, striking at, a group's identity that you represent or that you care about. And so you don't want to be wrong in this conflict because of those personal reasons. And when you recognize that, and you realize that that's different than the goal of finding the best answer, and then behaving accordingly, that's the key skill. And that's like, there's like semester long classes to be taught on that. But I can also, I get into that a little bit in Dream Teams, the book, but I have a couple articles I've written about how to recognize when things get personal, how to prevent conflict from getting personal at work. That I can share those articles, and maybe some other resources. But I think the key thing there is that conflict is not bad. Conflict is actually very useful. It's destructive conflict that's bad. So, and in fact, healthy conflict is far superior to avoiding conflict in the sake of keeping the peace. Not talking to people who could push your thinking is just cutting off your potential, and not talking to people that you have a problem with is just not resolving the problem, right? That doesn't solve the problem. It just lets it fester. So,